Hey everyone, welcome back to Right Media Group Chronicles. My guest today has been building websites since 1993, illustrated for the New York Times, and 10 years ago had a heart attack that changed everything. How he works, who he works with, and what actually matters. Jeffrey Wiener, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Jeffrey is the founder of Young Mind Interactive, creative director, illustrator, and someone who has reinvented himself more times than most people start over. Jeffrey, would you mind to start off with a little bit of your background and what led you into building your own agency and what the agency does today?
I was born in Miami, Florida, so I started off down south in a small town called Miami, and I was drawing from a very early age, and that really was the skill set that pulled me into the professional world. I think if you find children who can draw really well, they're usually asked to draw something for a poster. Next thing you know, it's a logo, and next thing it's And so by the time I was in my teens, like at 16, I was getting commissions from Miami Herald and just to do like spot illustrations. And I had an entrepreneur spirit like my father. And so I started selling my skills, and logo design, and this is all pre-digital, and so really helping people brand when it wasn't called branding, that really. And then I moved to New York after college. I'd been living in a few places, but I went to New York with a very strong ambition as an illustrator. And I got there, and it was a time in the professional illustration world in the 70s and 80s. It was like a real golden era. A lot of magazines at that time would feature an illustration, a portrait of like a president or some great leader 6, 7 times a year, like on Time magazine, for instance. And that was what compelled me to I had to go to New York. But as soon as I got there, it was a lot tougher than I thought it was going to be. You didn't just show up. And so I got jobs in design agencies right off the bat. And, this is before the computer. So they'd put you at these tables, drafting tables, and you were given a set of equipment, pens and compasses and rulers. And I was really well adapted to that. And that became like the introduction into publishing and advertising, in New York City in the 80s. And then every time I had lunch break, I would take my portfolio and I'd walk, from my job to one publisher after another, Simon Schuster, Macmillan, Time Magazine Group. I went everywhere with my portfolio and would leave it there for a couple of days, and I would get illustration commissions. And within a few years, I was getting big magazine commissions. And I went into the New York Times with some pieces that I'd done. And I met the art director there, and he was like, he called me within a couple of days and hired me for a piece. Actually, it's that one right there. That second one up.
Wow.
That's a pencil drawing, right? Before digital. And I did that in like 3 days, working like nonstop. And I think they paid me like $350 at that time. And it was published like globally on the op-ed section, full page spread. And that was like the beginning of a lot of stuff, so I started getting a lot of work like that.
So just to understand, was that a little bit of a side hustle you had going
Yeah.
on there while you were still working? So
As a
like you
designer.
said, you're having that entrepreneurship mindset, same like from your father. What was your father doing as an entrepreneur?
He was an interesting guy. He was a businessman in Miami, and he started by taking people to Cuba for gambling trips and stuff, for parties. And,
He
he knew
sounds
a
like a
lot of,
fun guy.
yeah, he had a lot of questionable relationships with people in Miami, businessmen from other parts of the world. So I got a little background in real estate development down there.
Mm.
But running my own business was very important to me. I've tried working for a lot of people over my life, and and it's okay. But I much rather be the captain of a small dinghy than to be like a right hand of the captain, which I oftentimes am. But I tell you, after the heart attack, I did change my strategy on that.
Yes, yes.
My,
Actually, the reason why, I hope you don't mind me introducing like that to the audience, but like
sure.
the thing with me is I have had conversations previously as well with people, and they're like the nicest people ever. Like genuinely, they're connecting with you. I'm like, how are you like such a wonderful person? And they had a major crisis or a health issue they've gone through, whether it was cancer or they've had a heart attack, and it changed their whole persona. Like they switched 360, whether it's the business model for you specifically. That's why I really wanted to dive deeper into your story and what exactly changed as well as.
After that having two careers essentially as a designer in the design world and an illustrator at night. And I had both those things
Mm.
running. And after a decade in other people's shops, I had to make my own business. So I launched Dangerous Media Productions, and I really focused on marketing and bringing in clients and building up a good stable, and having a very busy life where I often found myself up till 2, 3 in the morning, waking up at 7 or 8 for presentations, a typical New York City like agency lifestyle. And that ran my life for about 30 years. And, you don't really think about it very much when you're running that fast. You're trying to run like imagine a small design shop in New York City. You've got tons of competition. There's a lot of talented people all around you. You're not the first person to walk in the door. And so having some sort of modicum of success is like, it's not like you can just sit back. You really have to hustle nonstop. And as
Mhm.
most of your other guests are probably said, it's a lot of work to try to find leads and process them into clients. A lot of time and energy is spent on that. I did invest very heavily on relationships though, at the beginning. And that comes to play later because those relationships, some of my clients now I've had for 25, 30 years. And I've joined, like I helped them start their businesses essentially as like their second or third partner unofficially, because my style of client relationship is very close and personal. I've made friends with those clients,
Mm.
and they stuck with me and I've stuck with them. And, and I drove that kind of lifestyle for 30 years. And then I had this really big heart attack, right? And I mean, like everything grinds to a complete halt, right? And there is the experience of, like when you had that happen and you have like a near death experience, you do have
Mm.
turn around and what you think is important, and your philosophy of life naturally changes, and all your value systems kind of like become more important, and a way of filtering everything you do afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Goes through a good principle process.
Yeah, just to add to that or explain to the audience a little bit more, you were actually hiking on your own, wasn't you? And then
Yeah.
you felt did you feel like a chest pain and then you drove yourself
Yeah.
home?
I was I'm kind of like an outdoorsy guy, and I tend to like run off in the woods by myself, and my wife is always trying to keep a leash on me, but never. I was up in like 45 minutes north of Plattsburgh, New York, in the middle of the woods on a hike by myself, and I started feeling a heart attack in the middle of the hike.
Mm, mhm.
Had to get back to a car, and there's no one there, and then I had to drive myself like 10 minutes to the town of Plattsburgh, and I fell out of the car when I got there. I just barely made it. They picked me up in a rescue truck, and then I coded as I was going to the hospital. So, I died for about 4 or 5 minutes, and they were working on me with the paddle.
Wow.
And then I came back, and I mean, this is a little side, but I think the download of data that I got from that experience, that's the best way I could put it, is information that changed my life. And so,
Mm,
again, my whole value system is now adjusted towards, making the best out of every minute that I have here on this planet. It's a gift. Every day has been a gift to me. And a lot of people who've had those experiences will say the same thing. You just, you have to appreciate why you're here. And if you have a purpose, you want to recognize it. And that is actually part of my career shuffle because, like since the 10 years since my heart attack, I've kept 3 or 4 clients. I've shed other clients. I literally just
mhm,
much headache, too much heartburn, and I kept clients that know me, that are friends of mine, that like forgave me for not being available for 3, 4 months, and let me like get back up to speed. Think of that. Like that's a blessing to have someone
mm,
like not cut you off when you're trying to take care of them and you can't, and and they have their money issues. But that proved to be very important, and now those relationships are even stronger than ever.
mhm,
But I tell you, as far as the value systems go, I am leaning into, we're at a really interesting moment with AI and the changes that it's sweeping through our industry. And, when I hear the interviews that you do and the other guests, I hear a similar concern.
mm,
The water's creeping up, and the little rock you've been standing on gets smaller and smaller, you know, and you're still trying to like fish from that rock and catch your fish. And I know those changes are coming. And I know that my clients, some of them are older than me, and they're not going to bail on me because of AI. They're not going to say, well, AI can do this better than you. Honestly, there's nothing that AI can do right now that I can't do better and faster. But that won't last because it's not so much that I can't keep up or get faster, but clients, the next round of clients won't have the expectation of the human personal touch. They may just
Mhm.
be using AI services that are set up, AI agents that are developed to solve those problems. That's what my son's doing with my first company, Dangerous Media, right? He calls it DM Plus, and he's doing AI agent development to kind of like fill in that gap of need, and it's huge. I don't want to be any part of it really. I do
Mhm.
feel anti AI trend, and business, in my mind, my strategy is to kind of veer in that direction, which is relying more on human instinct. And I think that, you know, I've been using AI to strategize also against that. So,
Hmm.
in time to use AI to help me craft some career changes for myself that take advantage of people's anti AI feelings. So I'm working on new products and services that will be ready for that kind of response, that kickback that I'm expecting. I already see some of it now.
When you say you're strategizing against anti-AI, tell me a little bit more about that. Are you trying to make sure within the next couple of years there isn't an AI tool that comes out and sort of replaces what you do, so you're bulletproofing yourself?
No, actually, and this is actually a good example. I'll give you a couple. I have a client that sells power mobility scooters, power wheelchairs, very expensive items, 4, 5, $6,000 a piece. We sell through Amazon and Walmart. It's a market that I manage, and what we have been we had humans helping us build our campaigns, from India. I had a whole team that I'm running for micromanaging all these campaigns. And we decided to move towards an AI based firm to handle the management of those platforms. Right. And you'd think that makes a lot of sense, because the AI can adjust my bids every hour, every minute if I wanted it to. Whereas a human team has to schedule that time to go in, look at the number, making the decisions and then change, our settings and whatever. And my presumption was that AI can handle that better. Well, I just had yesterday a meeting with the client. We went into Amazon, looked at the numbers and found that they missed a whole bunch of categories of products that were like core to his business. And AI wouldn't have found these. It wouldn't have known about them. And my client has a very unusual methodology of taking leads and converting them into sales, very high touch, phone call oriented. And then eventually it means it looks like a canceled sale on a platform side, right? But the truth is it's handled someplace else. But AI doesn't see that. So AI is that's not even something I need to pay attention to.
And that's like a bad case scenario, like how AI couldn't deal with the task better than the human can, right? It's very scary how quickly it's evolving. That's the part for me that really gets me. I can't keep on top of the new tools coming out every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think that, in this case, there is a place for AI, right? And it can really shortcut the amount of energy and time. But at the same time, AI is only built off of patterns, right?
Mm.
Patterns of behavior, patterns of coding, patterns of communication and content development, all that. And so it's not prepared to do something original. It really can't. So
This is
that
great.
is
This is really great what you're talking about now. I actually have a podcast, it's still not posted, with another lady, and she talks about the very similar thing to you do. It's like AI's got a box and like a set of sort of is programmed on a set of rules based of something that was already done. It can't invent new things because it's always going back from previous work that was done or that was original, but it can't create something itself that's going to be original. So yeah, this is interesting.
there should be a place for businesses in service to be able to take care of that, because there are going to be unusual problems, right? That only AI can solve, but there are also unusual problems that only humans can see.
Mhm. Mhm.
Irony. I mean, irony is a really hard thing to program. Sarcasm. That's really tough to program, right? But
Yeah,
humans pick it up like that, right? So I think and I do believe that, like, especially where humans can. I've always had humor and good energy in my work, in my work and products of my work, but in the design side, the visual side. But the concept of humor is something that I've always thought of like as a very unique thing, and I just don't think AI can do it. I mean, a joke is only funny if it's attached to culturally relevant things that everyone knows in their heads. And sometimes that stuff moves. It's like, oh, it's 6, 7. You know,
yeah.
what makes something funny? Why is 6 funny to all the kids? In the last year.
Yeah, yeah. I actually interviewed somebody who's a comedian on the podcast as well. I sort of wish I asked more around, do you think AI is funny? Like now, sort of thinking back to it. But Jeffrey, what I found very interesting with the history of your agency and your background is you really had to reinvent yourself about 4 times, I believe, when we spoke previously. It was illustration design, web, and digital tools. So now with AI, do you feel like you're not going to reinvent yourself? You're going to stick to the fundamentals and just ride it out?
Yeah, it's like a trick question almost. I actually am leaning into teaching.
Mm.
I've been doing teaching animation at nearby this thing called the Bethel Woods Performing Arts Center. It's where the Woodstock concert was held. They have a really great bunch of programs there for digital music, arts and stuff. And I got hired to do animation, teaching animation there, and I'm having a great time. And I've been in the last couple of years, I'm teaching every chance I get the opportunity to. 'Cause that to me is also another one of those things that, it's not about the money. It's about, like, all that human knowledge being transferred to somebody else, a younger person. And, it's like, I really get a lot of enjoyment out of that. Tuesdays and Saturdays are teaching days now, like, the great remote world we have, I can just tell a client I got a Zoom call at 6 tonight. Can't talk to you, and I'm teaching instead. But,
Oh,
it's like you have to have a lot of different hats on sometimes, not just to get, professional fulfillment, but creative fulfillment and emotional fulfillment. And again, after the heart attack, it's like, yeah, I mean, like, I almost died. I mean, what if all that experience and knowledge and stuff that I wanted to share with my kids, like my son's followed my footsteps, and that's been great, but I got a lot more decades of information to put out there. That stuff is what you think about. And so teaching was almost like another response to the heart attack, which was like, well, now every day you have here is a gift. So what do you do with the wisdom you have? And it's not
yeah.
necessarily great wisdom, but like how to talk to a client, right? Let me, I challenge any person under 25 to do a cold call, a
Wow,
smooth
yeah.
cold call, right?
Mm,
Like,
mm.
how you teach a smooth cold call? That's
Yeah.
wisdom in my
Yeah,
mind,
of
but
course it is, and you learned it probably the hard way, so instead of somebody wasting years or months trying to grasp the proper way to do it and losing sales in the process, you can learn from somebody who's gone through the hard path.
right? And that's again one of those anti-AI trends because I really do
Mm.
believe, like, there may become try to imagine a small corporate environment, a small business where most of the people are under 30. They really have very limited experience, like their screens and their digital communications are the bulk of their communications. And so that human to human experience becomes like a skill that you need to hone. Right? That's like a TED Talk or like a consultancy. Let me go into your HR department and tell you people how to talk to each other. And let's also go to the whiteboard because doodling to get your ideas out versus going to AI might be a faster way of getting a better idea. You know,
Really?
I think about
Mm.
that, right? Like,
Mm.
from our experience, the whiteboard is where the best ideation seems to happen, in that meeting at 10 o'clock, 8 or 10 people with a whiteboard and two or three people fighting over the marker,
Much more beautiful as well, isn't it?
right? I mean, it might seem like, for me, that's like a typical experience in the dot-com world. Like, I worked at like 7 dot-coms over like a 15-year period. And, it's just, well, it reminds me of that the idea of changing hats. Like if I could get
Mm.
back to that, you can edit this. But I first started off that this illustration, that one right there, that's the one that the Miami Herald hired me to do back in 1989. That's an acrylic,
Wow.
and then I went to New York and I had to learn how to use a computer. 10 years from that painting, I was on an Apple on a small, S2 or something like that, and I had to learn how to use Quark Express and Photoshop 1 and Photoshop 2.0. And so like that was my first computer experience was in the mid 80s, when I switched from the drafting board to a computer. And then you wind forward another 10 years and I'm in New York City and I'm working at Scholastic and I'm working in the magazine group as an art director and I'm helping design magazines the old like without a computer still, you know, layouts the old fashioned way. Someone says, and I hear about the WWW, the World Wide Web,
Mm.
and I start going to these meetings in these little basements with all of these guys sitting around with T-shirts and potato chips on their chest, talking. internet, this World Wide Web, they called it. And I'm like, World Wide Web, that sounds fantastic. And I'm thinking, boy, I bet you businesses are going to love this. Like a real simple,
Wow, and it's, like,
like,
taken over.
it's like 1992. And I'm like thinking, wow, I'm going to quit Scholastic and start making websites, you know?
Mm.
And the first ones I did were for Scholastic, right? It was like, I remember the creative director said, who in here knows how to make a website? And I was like, I do. And I mean, in those days, it was like, you coded with BB Edit, which was almost like a text editor. You had Photoshop, and you had the Netscape browser to play your code to see what it displayed. And I started, and as soon as I got the first websites with Scholastic under my belt, I quit. I was like, I launched Dangerous Media.
Wow.
I went from being Jeffrey Wiener Studio as my first website to Dangerous Media Productions, and I got incorporated. And I started doing websites, and I did websites for like probably about 200 websites maybe in this time of period. And there were so many fast 1, 2, 3 pagers, little ones for like just all kinds of people and businesses. PC Magazine, PC World,
Oh,
every
wow.
name
I
I
mean,
could.
I have to ask, obviously, you've gone through a lot and you've seen a lot of changes in the marketing world specifically. How exactly, like now with AI, do you think it's the next big thing that businesses should put in their business to make themselves more efficient?
Yes, yes, right. There's no to that. And here's the thing, and this is kind of like the sobering thing, right? So up until now, if you were running any kind of business and you needed software, you were paying a couple of companies for that software. Microsoft, you're paying Adobe. You've got like packages that you're paying every year, tons of money. I can't tell you how many boxes of software, Quark Express, that I had to buy every year and a half, a whole new kit with the discs and everything. And now we're entering an age where, and I'm already doing this with some clients. It's like, well, you know what? Why don't we build an agent that goes into Amazon or Walmart and grabs this data and brings it together and puts some information together and gives us some like real documents to show us what's going on in sales? Or why don't we develop an agent that can hear me out here, but like let's say instead of using HubSpot,
Mm.
we build our own agents. And I'm not paying HubSpot anymore. You know how much they charge, and
We they are expensive. Yeah.
right? All of a sudden, I've got like, I'm going to pay maybe 5 grand, 10 grand for a bunch of agents that I'm going to have customized for my business. And those agents are going to go ahead and do everything that I'm paying HubSpot for and more. And if I want to add an agent that does something from another company that's selling me services, I will one by one make those companies disappear from my ledger. And I will then pay one fee for a bunch of agents to work for me. Now
Yeah.
that is
What
coming.
Actually, I've just spoken to another marketing agent. What she's doing is because these CRM platforms is some of them, like they have things in them and they're useful, but they don't have everything. It's like sometimes marketing agencies have to have multiple platforms just to have everything they need for their client deliveries and client communication. And what she's doing now with Claude becoming as good as it is, she's building her own CRM that has everything in one place, and she's not going to have these monthly subscriptions anywhere.
Huge. I mean, it's scary, but it's also liberating. I mean, if you think about like that, those, from my point of view, those are expenses that drag my business down, right? I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to build out Adobe, but you get the point. And I mean, this is what my kid's doing with my old company. I mean, he's driving in that direction, and I'm like, son, that is the smartest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And I wish if I were his age, I would be right in the front line with that. But I'd rather be young, mind interactive and consult on the transition period, right? Because I
Uh-huh.
think for me, the transition period is going to be really rough and bumpy, and me helping my clients through it is worth more for my business than taking on new clients and getting them set up. So like I'll plan out the next 10 years with my old set of clients, and maybe I'll add a couple of new clients, that are gonna maybe challenge me more, have more
Mm.
fun with. I would only take on a new client now if I were like, oh, I love this idea. That's what I want to do. That's take on a
And
new client.
how do you plan to connect with these new clients potentially? What sort of is it networking? Because you seem to really grasp that building relationship aspect.
This is I'm so glad you asked this one too, because this is actually like, I'm lucky enough to have my son working on this with me, and we're harnessing AI and Claude and all of his skills, and essentially we've been using it to we've been training it on my businesses, right? We've been training AI on Young Mind Interactive and all the content I've been producing the last 10 years, and what my specialty is, and we're essentially kind of crafting a new target list, essentially, right? We've
Oh,
got new
nice.
target, and we're essentially like, I've got I've got I've got posts being generated that I could never have the time to put together, but that capture my philosophy about teaching and how valuable the skills that the brain to hand drawing skill is for cognitive development. All the philosophies I have on education, my son's been designing agents to learn from me and then craft a business plan based on what I like to do. And
Wow, this
that to
sounds
me is like,
amazing. Instead of hiring like a business development, the agents are doing the work for you, but they're still speaking your tonality, your brand language, things that you would produce, but you don't have the time to do.
right, right. And it's funny, I think last time we talked, I said I was using 11 Labs to clone my voice because I do
Mm.
voice work, right? For my clients when I make commercial spots for them. And so I just went to 11 Labs and I trained it to do like 3 or 4 versions of me, like me on caffeine, me really mellow and talking slow,
Yeah.
I have like set of voices for me that I just put on and I just throw the scripts in there. But since then, I think I've upped my AI game since I last talked to
Yeah.
you.
I think it was 2 months ago we spoke. You clearly have.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's really a weird moment to like, I don't. It looks like my writing these blog posts because it is what I'm thinking, and that's really interesting stuff that my son and I have been working on. So
So,
I
are these agents, the purpose of them is do that thought leadership for you, that business development?
it's not so much that because I'm also feeding my desires and my agenda into the system.
Mhm.
I have
Mhm.
things and certain like I would say these are clients I like doing the work for. Like I can say this is a client that I want to do more of. That like about that for a minute. Look at this client. This specific client is the one that I want more of versus that kind of client. You see what I'm saying? It's real subtle tweaking of the prompting, essentially their agents and what they do. But I think it's not beyond human intelligence to think above the AI and think of the AI as the assistant here. Keep it that way.
I want to tap into that a little bit more because speaking to marketing agents all the time, I know that lead generation, whether it's thought leadership, there's plenty of ways out there, and some have grasped it, some have not. Now, what I want to tap into more is so you basically said these agents, you have sort of like a list, like these are the clients I like to work with, these are the clients I don't like to work with, and they're going out and finding more people like that. Now, what is your tactic that you're utilizing for actually getting connected and building that trust with them or getting on a conversation with them?
Well, that's more like back to the old school kind of relationship building. I'm like, I really believe in picking up the phone when it's ringing. Like if I pick up the phone and it doesn't say potential spam, marketing, I'm gonna take that call. And I will if my I found it if my clients email me, I think it's much easier almost to deal with it immediately on a couple different levels, right? Like first respond right back. I heard you, I'm on it, you know, and I get their expectations set, like that I'm actually paying attention to their problem and they're not wondering if I even read their email. There's no
Mm.
gap time that erodes trust, right? That because that the longer it is, the worse the trust is to rebuild. So you start, and it's like if it's a problem, it only takes like 10 minutes or 15 minutes because that's usually the case. It's like, this is a partner on my website. We need that partner taken off, and they're freaking out about it. Take care of that right away, and know the difference between that and something that's not important. You know, those kind of little decisions are really huge in those first kind of initial contacts with a client when I first start to try to build that relationship is to make them feel like I'm their doctor almost, right? Like
Mm.
I'm not going to make you wait and worry. I'm going to take care. You're going to know that I'm thinking about you. That's what I want to impart.
Yeah, but having that doctor philosophy when it's a first conversation you have with a potential prospect, you don't really pitch anything you do you? You just build that relationship and
I listen. I listen a lot. I respond because I think mostly because it's easy to say, "Oh, I've got a whole bag of solutions in my pocket." As soon as you finish your sentence and hit the period, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do for you. And I find I really like talking to people in more humane terms where it's more like, yeah, I heard your problem. I'm going to think about that for a little bit before I get back to you. I'm going to put some documents together to kind of like lay out some options for it. And we'll decide together on what the way to go is, because it might be a big hit on your budget. I'm not really sure.
Of course.
Just sensitivity. And just, I think it's like letting them know, and this is a phrase, letting them know that you can step into their shoes. Right? I know what it's like to be, that's an old,
Mm,
it's so powerful. If you could just like
yeah.
to work,
But it's a
right?
skill.
Exactly would like to feel it with their pressure.
Not like anyone can be empathetic. I'll be honest with you. Some people just can't imagine being in other people's shoes, in other business owners' shoes.
Oh
It's
yeah.
a skill that I don't know if you're born with it, whether maybe you can learn.
I didn't have it in the beginning. I
You
was
did.
brash, too confident, and I thought I knew everything. Like, I thought I knew everything more than my clients. I don't think that way anymore. Now I think that, like, how could I possibly know what my client's dealing with is what I think. And this is actually after the heart attack, by the way.
Mm.
It changed my whole way of looking at people and their problems now. If I walk up to someone, I'm like, I want to feel their vibe. Maybe they're having some bad experience. Like, and I walk up to them, I shouldn't just open my mouth up and start yakking. Let's see what they're going through. Now, let's get a sense of how they're feeling. Just being sensitive to that, even in business, it's so important. And all these clients, I just reminded myself every time the phone rings that they've got a lot of stuff going on. They're probably worried. They're freaking out, something in that realm. And, I want to be the person that they feel they could trust and that has got their back, right? Even if I can't, I want to tell them I'm going to try.
But that's
That's,
the thing with you as well. Would you onboard somebody that you don't believe there is that long-term partnership with it just be for a couple months? You wouldn't, would you?
not anymore. No, it's not worth it.
Mhm.
Like, especially if it's gonna be a one-off. I love that phrase. It's like, if they're just gonna use me and drop me afterwards, I'm not interested. I'm not even interested in that. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
why? Because 'Cause I'm gonna invest my heart and soul into you. If it feels good, I'm gonna throw myself 100%, 10% at you and your business, and you'll feel it. And, but if I
Mm.
don't get it reciprocated and trust it, I can't even I can't operate anymore that way.
It's an interesting philosophy that you have, Jeffrey, especially in this day and era where it's a churn and burn with all the agencies. They come from possibly even one of your clients potentially came from a long line of agencies that have been burned with in the past because they overpromise and underdeliver.
Actually the case. I've picked up, in fact, I have never had to advertise for my business. Ever. I've always had word of mouth send me clients, like, because I take care of people and I take care of important people. And they are the ones to keep an eye on. If you take care of some people who know a lot of people, that's going to be great. And some of these people, just like every other year, I get a good lead from those people that's a real good lead.
So you would say your network is your net worth.
Yeah. Honest God, that's literal, right? Yeah.
It's how do you get into those networks though, right? What are the different is it events? Is it just connections, referrals, like you said, word of mouth?
You know what? It's about talking to people and meeting people. Like, I mean, I'm a social person. I love chatting with people, and my wife always accuses me of always looking for business. Like, I'm always like, "You need a website?" Um, but,
Oh, yeah.
I've really toned it down. I've hit all of her friends up over the last 20 years. And yeah, some of them became clients, and they had big businesses, but, it's like, I found that if you just talk to people and you listen to them, and as soon as you hear that they're running a business, bingo, then the conversation just gets a little bit more torqued towards, "Oh, what kind of problems do you have? What's your business?"
Yeah, yeah,
Curious to know. I do that kind of stuff for people, and
yeah.
a lot of my conversations like that, I'm always keeping that channel open. So if I'm talking to someone, if it's an art exhibit or that I'm in or something else, my ear is always open for the husbands, the spouses,
Mhm,
anyone
mhm.
you know knows someone who needs someone like you. That's how
Yeah,
right? And so if
yeah,
you talk and you let people know what you do, it really does. It works so much better than a business card, you know?
yeah. Oh, yeah. If you don't ask for business or for a referral, you're not gonna get, obviously. You need to put yourself out there, and sometimes it's uncomfortable, but you gotta build it up.
It is uncomfortable, but like you get over it,
You
right?
get
And
over it, and
the more you do it, the better, the easier it gets. Right, and it's like public speaking because, I one of my hats, I ran a figurative arts, video website for about 15 years. thegreatnude.tv. It's still running. And I interviewed lots of artists and galleries. I went to like some of the biggest art shows in the country, and I would just meet people. And, I think it's just like just putting myself in another environment and operating inside that environment pulled business out of it to the other business I was running. In other
Mm-hmm.
words, so I had three businesses running concurrently. One was a publishing company, one was a design company, one was like more design, one was more like marketing. And all three of them fed each other. And it's not that I intentionally thought that, but it just seemed like a natural. If you could do a lot of different things, you just keep all those burners running, you know?
Yeah.
And that in my 50s, I think just really helped me establish those relationships, and that networking was built then
Yeah,
early.
of course. Jeffrey, my last question to you. What is your plan with the agency? And what is your plan on the side as well? Because we talked about the importance of filling up your cup. So you're not just focusing on work, you also do creative tasks that fill you up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I up in for the last 10 years, with Young Men Interactive, I did a lot of content development, and it took the form of games and editorial and illustrations for some of my educational clients. Yeah, and then I started thinking, this is about 3 years ago, I retooled Young Men Interactive to be like a content producer. Like we are experts at content development and as a consultancy and as a production company. And now with AI, I am absolutely convinced that that is like the wrong move because development has now become commoditized. And most of the potential clients that I would ever consider with that previous strategy would be like, why would I need to go to you for illustrations and editorial? And I can do educational graphs, now, with why would I go to a human to do this? It would take you longer. Maybe it
Mm,
would cost more. And so for me, it's like, okay, I have to torque this to a different. And so for me, it's the consultancy is
mm,
the turning point. And so for like knowing that like with my son doing all that development on AI agent and really strategizing with AI, I'm pretty informed on all those developments enough to be able to consult with my current clients and also find new clients for consulting in that same fashion. So if
okay,
I'm helping my clients use AI in the way that I'm
mm,
using that is essentially going to be my growth plan. Is I
ah,
like focus on helping other companies get caught up to speed. I figure I got a good 5 years, and I'm happy with that because I really would like to in 5 years transition back to making paintings like and drawings like the ones behind me.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
but my clients have to let me go. Can't just
Mm,
quit. I cannot leave those light tight relationships. By the way, that's the flip side. If I disappeared from one of those clients, they would have to get an agency and
no.
afford it. So it's kind of like we're married together, me and a handful of clients for the next, 10 years, I think. And I see that
Yeah,
as actually a good thing to end on because that's not a bad way of looking at it. I'm not going to worry about churn. It's really, we're just talking about the end of our lives,
yeah,
naturally
it's
speaking.
not a topic you really
Naturally
wanna be
speaking,
talking about, but it's good to have a backup plan and something in place.
I plan to be working for a good 20 years, but I just want to work on
Yeah.
what I
Oh,
want
wow.
working only. That's my
Yeah,
plan. I'm not retiring. I'm an artist. We never retire.
that's great, and what about the teaching gig? Is that something you plan to take more on? Because
That is
you said you
absolute
enjoy it?
responsibility. Every artist needs to become a teacher.
Mm.
I firmly believe that every artist owes that to the next generation, especially now with AI. Those skills in traditional mediums are going to become like gold, I think.
Mm.
Like if you think about anybody in the world of tech and media is probably making sure their kids know how to paint and draw. They already know, right? And
Yeah.
so me teaching kids how to paint and draw, how to think visually, how to break down and solve problems visually using whiteboards and doodling and sketching and some of the core analytical processes that come out of the human brain when you're like 4, 5, 6 years old, 7. That's where I want to focus. I think that finding those really talented little people and helping them discover their skill sets and their dreams and their road, that to me would be like if I can finish my life doing that would be great. And that's really
Would you wanna be doing that full time? Or you
nah,
can't because
no,
no?
I can't. I have too many it's like I said, since the heart attack, every day is a gift, And I have there's so many things I wanna do. I'm still learning fly fishing. I've got a lot of fishing, there's gardening, there's grandchildren that are gonna come one day, and
Wow.
I wanna
Yeah.
have a piece of all of that, right? I won't let my business gobble it all up. I'll always reserve personal time, for living. I
Yeah, I
recommend
mean, you have such a lavish lifestyle, I might say, you're doing so many things. It's like, how do you sustain that? But I'm guessing having those relationships in place, not just another business, is a good sort of backup plan to have.
it's organic.
Uh-huh.
It's a very organic system. I think anybody could do it if they just focus on, think about 10 years ahead.
Uh-huh.
And it's hard to do if you're in your 30s. Well, maybe it is because you can't pause and think about it. But like when you get older and you have those experiences, the health issues, you do start thinking in terms of like, well, I'm looking ahead. 10, 20 years? What do I want to do? I mean, my father lived a good, healthy, long life, up until his heart gave out. But like, I already know that experience. I know what's coming. I know that every day I want to live it to its fullest. I'm going to like have the most fun I can have. I'm going to like, eat and drink and party a little bit. And, I'm going to really enjoy life. And I'm also going to keep drawing and painting and solving clients' problems, which I honestly, God, I really love doing that too. So
Jeffrey, if you could give one lesson, maybe something you wish you had before you had a heart attack, is there anything you want to let the audience know? Maybe something that you wish somebody told you?
great question. Yeah. Yeah, I would say don't take these people around you for granted. If people love you and they're around you, like recognize the love you have around you. I think that keeps life wonderful is having nice, solid, loving relationships around you. And I mean that from business to personal, to the place where you go shopping for your groceries. Smile at each other. Um, Enjoy that moment. That's what I wish I did when I was younger instead of racing so fast.
That's great advice there, Jeffrey. Thank you so much. Spending almost an hour with me. I'm not going to hold you any longer.
That's
My
great.
last question is if people wanted to connect with you and find out more about what you're doing, Jeffrey, where should they start looking for you?
Youngmindinteractive.com. That's the best place to find everything I do.
That's nice and simple. So we'll make sure the links drop down below so people can locate you easily as well. And
Okay, great.
for anyone who's watching, if you enjoyed this episode and the value Jeffrey offered, please like and subscribe and let me know your favorite takeaway from Jeffrey down below in the comments. Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.